welcome back to our podcast. I'm the Disturbed Southern Belle.
And I'm the gentleman.
We're continuing our series of some of the most disturbing media, and as I said before, we're going to be talking about some of the most disturbing books. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the novel American Psycho, which was written by Bret Easton Ellis. It's also a movie. It was published in 1991 and is told in the first person's perspective of this wealthy, kind of narcissistic investment banker named Patrick Bateman.
Probably one of the most well-known books and movies.
Yeah, it's good.
At least here in the States,
it's interesting. It's very interesting. So, let's get into the details of the story. So, as I said, this story is set in Manhattan during the Wall Street boom of like 1989, and it follows the life of the wealthy young investment banker named Patrick Bateman. And Patrick is supposed to be roughly maybe in his mid-20s at the beginning. So the story begins with Patrick just talking about his everyday activities, which include, like, what he does during the day, like going to the gym, blah, 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 and how he hangs out with the elite of New York. And then he talks about his nighttime activity of murder. He tells about a series of Friday nights spent at varied nightclubs with his colleagues where they use the popular drug at the time, which of course cocaine. They spend their time critiquing others' club's attire, trading advice on fashion, questioning one another on proper etiquette, and it's just, they're very snobby, basically. Bateman is in a loveless engagement to a fellow yuppie named Evelyn, and he also talks about his contentious relationship with his brother and his senile mother. His stream of consciousness is sometimes broken up by chapters in which he will directly address the reader in order to critique the works of various 1980 pop music artists like Huey Lewis and the News, for instance. The novel has several contradictions which lead the reader to see Patrick as an unreliable narrator. Characters are consistently introduced as people other than themselves, and people often argue over the identity of others. You'll see this several times, where they mistake one person for another. It happens a bunch. Patrick is obsessed with his personal appearance, and he goes into this really extensive descriptions of his daily skincare regimens. He does all these scrubs, masks. I mean, it's just insane. Later, Bateman says that he's killed one of his colleagues, which is a man named Paul Owen. And he then decides he's going to use Paul's apartment as a place to take future victims. His control over his violent tendencies starts to deteriorate, and his murders become increasingly sadistic and complex. He starts out basically just simply stabbing people, which is bad enough, but then it goes out to these drawn-out sequences of SA, torture, mutilation, feeding on the victims, and sort of, we'll say, the desecration of their corpses by sexual means, we'll say, kind of thing. And as you can imagine, his grasp on his sanity continues to slip. He then begins to slip in stories of serial killers, like into casual conversations, and on several occasions he even openly confesses his crimes to his co-workers. However, he's never taken seriously, and his stories are dismissed, or people will always seem to kind of misunderstand what he says. Such as one time he says something like murders and executions, and they hear him saying mergers and acquisitions, and they'll just go along with it. So they're basically just, whatever, and they're not paying attention to him, supposedly. Now, he eventually goes on a shooting spree, supposedly, where he kills several random people who are on the street, and this causes a SWAT team to be dispatched along with a helicopter, and he's able to flee to his office, where he then calls his attorney, Harold Carnes, and he confesses his crimes into his answering machine. Bateman is able to avoid being arrested, and he later goes back to revisit Paul's apartment. In an earlier visit, he had killed these two ladies of the evening, and so he enters the apartment carrying this surgical mask in anticipation of, disposing of the bodies, basically.
Yeah.
When he enters, he's shocked to find the apartment is clean and has been completely refurbished, and there's this strong smell of flowers in the air. And then he also sees that there's this real estate agent there who's a little suspicious of him, because here he is coming in carrying this surgical mask. Like, what are you doing? He's able to kind of redirect the woman's attention by explaining that he's there to view the apartment after supposedly seeing this ad in the newspaper, which he says that he saw an ad in the Times. She tells him that there's not been any ad placed for the apartment, and she tells him to leave and never return. It's then implied by him that the apartment had probably been cleaned and refurbished by the building's owners as a way to hide the murders and keep the selling point high for the unit, which would make sense had that,
Yeah, it would make sense.
Now, his mental state continues to deteriorate, and he begins to have these really weird hallucinations, such as one where he sees a Cheerio being interviewed on a talk show.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So towards the end of the story, he confronts his attorney about the message that he had left on his machine, where he had confessed all of his murders and whatever. However, his attorney is simply amused by what he considers a joke. He mistakes Patrick and doesn't realize he's actually talking to Bateman, and he tells him that the Patrick Bateman he knows is too much of a coward to have ever committed such acts. Bateman then tells him that he's Patrick Bateman, and he begins to argue with him, telling him again that he had killed Paul Owens. And this leads Carnes to tell him that there's no way that he had murdered Paul, as he had personally had dinner with him twice in London just a few days prior. So the book then ends as it began, with Patrick and his friends at a new club on a Friday night after having those normal, just stupid conversations that they were, oh, this person's wearing something that's not, just dumb crap, basically. And all the men in the bar agreed that economic success does not equate happiness. The book then closes with a description of a sign in the bar that reads, "This is not an exit." So, it basically makes you wonder, did he even do any of these crimes? Or is he just like insane and hallucinating them? Or did he, and his people are so
sure that he's not
capable of it, and just so caught up in this mundane crap that doesn't matter, that they're just not even listening to him, and he's admitting it. So it kind of leaves you to believe either way. So you can, it's interesting in that, because it could be that he's just totally, has he done anything? Has he not? Maybe he has killed some people. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just didn't kill Paul, for instance. Or, then again, they're always getting people confused, so maybe he had dinner with somebody different and just thought it was Paul. Because that's another thing, is they're always being introduced by the wrong names and things, because they all look alike, they all act alike. They're like just copies of each other. Exactly. So, it's very interesting, but very creepy when you think about it, because did he do it? Did he not? Was he crazy? What's going on? But anyway, we hope you enjoyed that excerpt into some of the more disturbing media. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay disturbed.